What happens if your rental property is damaged and needs repair? Who is going to pay for it? Is it the tenant's responsibility or is it your responsibility? Stick around because we're going to answer that question once and for all. My name is Peter McKenzie. I'm the CEO of Rincon Property Management. We've been managing properties professionally for over 10 years, and this is something we deal with on a daily basis. So let's get into it. Okay, if the issue at hand is considered normal wear and tear, you're on the hook to repair it, the landlord. If it's considered damage, then that's the tenant's responsibility. So let's give an example. So let's say that you have wood floors, and at the entrance where everybody comes and goes out of the house, there's some minor scuffing and scratching. That's considered normal wear and tear. We couldn't charge the tenant security deposit to it. On the flip side, let's say at the entrance, there's a gaping, 4x4 hole and you could see through the subfloor. That's considered damage, and that is something we could charge the tenant security deposit for. Another example is paint. Paint generally has a useful life of anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Let's say your tenant's there for 2 years, they move out. There's some tiny little finish nailing holes that they maybe hung up painting, or there's some scuffs around the light switches. That's generally considered normal wear and tear. Now, let's say they let their toddler take a crayon and mark the whole entire perimeter of the house at their eye level with crayons. That's damage. That's something you can charge the tenant for. Okay, so those are just some examples on normal wear and tear versus tenant damage. By the way, this is something that's litigated in small claims court all the time. And the reality is, it's better just to negotiate something with your tenant. If you end up in small claims court, you're probably gonna lose. Everyone loses a little. You definitely don't get everything you expect you're gonna get. But let's talk about how to prevent this from happening, how to not end up in small claims court, how to not end up in a dispute over wear and tear versus damage. So how do you prevent getting into these disputes with your tenants? If you're managing the property on your own and you were responsible for drawing up the lease, put it in your lease. There you can easily have a normal wear and tear versus damage addendum in your lease that clearly outlines all the common causes, because the reality is it's the same things over and over that end up being disputed. It's carpet, flooring, paint, appliance fixtures, water damage on faucets, things like that. It's the same stuff over and over again. So why not put a wear and tear versus damage addendum that clearly outlines it in your lease? It will prevent misunderstandings, or that's the intention anyway. And it will prevent a lot of the issues. It's not that it's going to fix everything, because you might have an unreasonable tenant. You might still have the conversation, but it will prevent a lot of it before it ever happens. The other thing to keep in mind is some local laws, state laws, federal laws get involved in this on what you can charge and what you can't charge. We happen to be in California. It's a very tenant-friendly state. I know from experience and standing in front of judges arguing about this very issue that a lot of the time it's up to the judge to interpret and whatever particular mood they're in. And there is no clear cut like, this is how much carpet's worth, this is how much paint's worth, this is the percentage that the tenant's responsible for, that doesn't exist. I wish it did, because if it did, this would solve a lot of people's problems when it comes to managing property, but that's not the case. But some jurisdictions and some states get involved in what can and can't be charged. If you're watching this and you're not in California, make sure you look into what the law allows where you're at. Okay, let's say you have a property that's being managed by a management company. How do you then make sure that the management company is doing the right thing and keeping you safe as the client, which is why you hired them to? It's a little harder because you're not getting involved in the weeds on what's normal wear and tear versus damage. You may be in the loop if there's a dispute and they're going to go to small claims court, but the reality is this goes back to you have to pick the right company. So we track the rate at which we return security deposits. And what I mean by that is this. We track how much deposit goes back to the tenant. So in a perfect world, 100% of the deposit goes back to the tenant, because that would mean that the tenant didn't damage the property, which is what everybody wants. We don't want tenants damaging properties, but that's not 100% practical, that 100% of the time you're going to return the deposit. In our case, we last month returned 87% of the deposits back to the tenant. What that tells you is that our tenants take really good care of the properties. So if you find a management company and they say, oh, we usually keep the deposits, That's telling you either A, their tenants are destroying their properties and they're not doing a good job picking tenants, or B, they're not following the law when it comes to security deposits, which is also a huge red flag because it puts you at risk. You're going to get dragged into small claims court more often in that scenario, which is bad for you because in the end, it's not the property management company's money that's coming out of their pocket to fix this problem. It's your money that's coming out of your pocket. Okay, so those are some helpful tips. I would be remiss if I didn't say what Rincon Property Management does to help with this situation. And there's a couple key things. One is we properly vet our tenants. We do the homework up front to make sure we're getting a good tenant who's just gonna take care of the property, because that's much easier than getting in a fight over who damaged what in a property. The old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure, it absolutely applies here. The other thing is do your inspections. We do an annual inspection where we're going into the property to see if the property is being taken care of. And if it's not, then we're probably not going to renew that lease. It's really important that the inspections are done. And then the last thing is do the right thing when it comes to security deposits. Ultimately, you don't want to be dragged into small claims court. Everyone loses when you do, and it's not in the best interest of the client, the landlord, the people who own the property. I hope this helped you eliminate the gray area of what normal wear and tear is versus property damage. If you like this content, if you want to keep hearing more from us, make sure you subscribe, follow, do all the things, and we will be happy to continue to produce content like this.